Alright, hello. A few seconds after I was done streaming, it's very late, so I'm gonna be rushing as much as possible. We're gonna talk about the Vesper and we're gonna compare it to the Spirex because I said I would make a Spirex video and I think it's the perfect time to compare the two guns because Vesper, in case you don't know, got an augment that is called Leaded Gas, and I finally have it so I can try it. And I have tried it, and this is the best build that you can possibly go for it. I will explain why, and then I will compare it to the Spirex, and we will all live happily ever after. Sounds good? That's great. Okay, let's go. So, Leaded Gas, what it does, on weak point hit, gain 300% status chance and damage. Gas damage, to be specific. Now, this is very, very interesting. This is a mod that works similarly to the magnetic mode, similarly to the radiation modes, but because gas damage has its own proc, this means that you can completely outsource this out its own type of damage and then mod for something else. Now, I tried two things. I tried modding for just the gas and then trying to get as much damage as possible from the thing, which is okay. But something that was way better was simply building it for blasts, and I will explain why. So, if we're gonna first of all take this build, which is just the build to deal as much gas damage as possible, we're gonna see that the damage of the gas proc is pretty okay. So, we're killing, and we see some decent gas procs, you know, especially when the viral procs kick in, we see pretty decent gas procs. With armor strip, 1 point something million. In general, you know, 170k, and some really, really nice damage overall. Pretty impressive, huh? Yes, I will say so myself. This is a build that is dealing quite a bit of damage compared to the previous version of the Vesper. It is really, really cool. And we can see some really high damage numbers, which is also really cool. It's something I can appreciate quite a bit. And you know, we haven't used Roar yet, so I'm gonna use Roar as well, so you can see it like this. With a whopping 211% Roar, it's like I'm playing Rhino right now. And you know, that is some really, really good proc damage. 300k, 400k with viral procs, 500k when I get a good hit on them. In general, the gas proc is really, really strong. Good? Good. But here's the kicker. The way blast damage works is that it deals 30% of base damage after 1.5 seconds as an explosion at 10 stacks on death. And, you know, the issue with Leaded Gas is that for some reason it stacks onto the blast proc. You will see it for yourself. Without Leaded Gas, the blast proc was dealing around 2 to 3 million damage. With this Leaded Gas, the blast proc is dealing, well, fucking insane amounts of damage. Like, fuck ton of damage. So no stacks, 300, 600k, that makes sense. Now 500k, then gas proc, whatever. 4.2 million, 7.4 million. And that is without Roar. You add Roar, and you know, 2.7 million, it just, yeah, it's stupid. And this is without any type of Panzer shenanigans. So, to elevate this even further, obviously you can do something like a Bubonical Primer, which, if you want to do a build like this, I think you should have a Bubonical Primer build, which can help you with getting way, way better results. So, prime all these dudes. You know, crazy damages, obviously. 68 million blast proc. $68 million, I think 78 million is the highest blast proc damage I've seen from this by doing this exact scenario. It is very impressive. Yes. I will say that this mod has made this weapon way, way better than it used to be. And right now it has the added benefit that compared to the Plinx, if you use the Plinx without stacks or anything, it doesn't have the status percentage to back it up to try and give you the maximum amount of damage that it can. And therefore, for just the normal primary fire, a Vesper is gonna out damage a Plinx now, which is really, really good. Now, Plinx has its alt fire, which completely changes this, but it doesn't really matter. For the playstyle that the Vesper is supposed to be good at, it excels at with almost every weapon in the game. And I say almost, because there is one weapon that is sadly projectile based, but it had to be that way, that does more damage than the Vesper in that regard. And that is the Spirex. So, Spirex, I do have a Riven, but I'm not going to use it, obviously, for the purposes of this being fair, because for the Vesper, currently, using Rivens is pointless. The Vesper Riven disposition is 1. So, any stats you get on a Riven mode on the Vesper is going to be absolute dog water. Okay? For lack of a better word, for lack of cursing, dog water. So, right now, similarly, Tenet Spirex build with Blast. This is the main build that you would use on a Tenet Spirex. Now, there is a huge difference here on the start. As you saw, when I started using the Vesper, I could instantly kill an enemy without really struggling. The Spirex, even with the Panzer trying to help, for the first kills, it will not do that at all. But then, once you stack, the blast procs go, well, pretty nuts. As you can see. $30 million damage on that guy. And that's because of its incredibly high base damage and it being heat, so you can add the cold and then get it to blast, and then it does more blast, and, you know, it's really funny. Plus it has a tiny bit of AoE which can transfer to a lot of blast procs and crazy damages. So far so good. Identical damages compared to something like the Vesper. The only difference is this thing has multiplicative CO. Yeah, the multiplicative CO completely changes how this factors, and you'll see immediately that we get 117 million blast proc, 184 million blast proc. And obviously, really good damage per shot, but, I mean, the blast proc is where it's at. And remember, this is without a Riven mode, this is just Frostbite. Riven modes for this weapon have a 1.05 disposition, if I remember correctly, so you can get, you know, even more crazy. 191 million. 500 million on the armor strip targets. That's the highest damage I've done with the Spirex so far. And it was without my Riven. If I had my Riven, that would probably be 1 billion. That's kind of crazy. So, 1 billion damage from the blast proc on this thing. You may say, yeah, but I'm not somebody who uses primers, I'm not doing this and that. Well, you have something to prime enemies for you in terms of a companion pretty much always, which will boost the effective damage of this weapon by a lot. And until the Vesper gets the disposition increased to be similar to the one that Spirex uses right now, because I do think that will be the thing that saves the Vesper in general. I think that's where it just straight up wins, especially considering my bonus on here is radiation, where I could easily just swap it to cold for even more blast damage or do something completely different. In general, there is quite a bit of ways to use Plinx as well, because it has guaranteed impact procs. It's a very interesting weapon in general. So, with the Riven, we say 2.4 million, 2.7 million. Now it's like similar to the Vesper in damage in terms of the normal damage per shot that we saw before, without any type of priming. Which means that when we add in primer, well, now it gets crazy. 138 million. 573 million. Back-to-back damage records from me on this weapon. kinda, and 167 million direct damage without any type of proc. So there is definitely things to do with the Spirex. And the other thing that the Spirex has, as I said, is a guaranteed impact proc, which allows for a Hemorrhage build, which is also very interesting. Some viral Hemorrhage build that you can use, or you could use some other elements, or you could try to just go even more base damage. But in general, this is something that you can do. And as you can see, our damage is simply too high to even get the Hemorrhage build. But if we do, that was 900k on a body shot without IQD. So yeah, we are looking at some pretty ridiculous damages. Yeah, I missed, but doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is, yes, the Vesper buff is really, really good. I like it. I really like the mod. It also opens a question of what kind of build variety you want to use. If you want to use blast, if you want to go full gas, if you want to go gas and electric, gas and heat, something like that. You have options now. In my opinion, the best possible build right now would be this, and the only thing I would change is Galvanized Crosshairs instead of Crit and Bullseye, because that can put you close to red crit territory or on red crit territory if you're using the Ardaza Kavat. Other than that, this is pretty much a final build. Is it good? Yes, 100%. And it also serves the purpose that I always said, that you have a secondary weapon that no matter when and what level you are, you can always swap to it, shoot some guy in the head no matter what level and how tanky they are, and they will die. The Vesper can now do that without any Riven, without anything, which is actually really fucking good. And its direct competition is sadly the Plinx. And the Plinx, even though the normal fire is way, way weaker, as we're gonna see. So if I go here and use the normal fire on these guys, well, it doesn't one-shot them, it two-shots them, okay? It's a bit weaker. Okay, that guy got one-shotted, but in general it's a bit weaker. But, Plinx also has this thing. Yeah. So, it's not really a good direct comparison to compare these two weapons because, the Plinx does have the advantage no matter what's on that alt fire. But I still think that for the purpose that it's built, Vesper actually serves the purpose that it was built for now, and that is really, really good. I also tested it on disruptions. It can one-shot disruption targets very easily by doing this. And it was actually really, really good. And I have a screenshots. I will show it right now to showcase the differences between these on the disruption, because I did actually record a much larger video initially, which I thought I would make way simpler for the sake of, your time mainly. But where are we? Where is the screenshots? Is this it? That is not it. Gotta find the chat log, sorry. Is this the chat log? Yeah, this is the chat log. Okay, perfect. So, sorry about that. Here's the chat log, okay? I know it's like really small, give me a second. Okay, so this is me testing on disruption Grineer targets on all the weapons. So this is the Vesper with full priming from a Bubonico and Roar, and using Arcane Crepuscular on my Wisp, max stacks, everything. Everything that we're gonna see here is maxed. So 1.8 million from the Vesper, 4.5 million on the Spirex, but on the Spirex build that was built for the bleed proc to deal with the disruption target. On this one, which has far less damage than a something that would be, I guess, full corrosive or something like that, which you can easily do since you have primed convulsion as a mod right here. So if I used primed convulsion and I opted for something like the corrosive damage that I'm talking about, that would do way more damage. That doesn't matter though. What matters is this. This is the Plinx alt fire on a body shot. And this is the Plinx alt fire on a headshot with the same exact test. The difference is astronomical, yes, 100%. And the best part about it is that the Plinx, because of its low disposition, it's really hard to get a Riven for it that is unironically worth it, because the only mode you can really slow the Riven on is Hornet Strike, where you will lose a bit of base damage, but you can gain other stats. Other than that, you know, it's, in my opinion, Plinx, then Spirex, and then the Vesper. But the Vesper is better in terms of quality of life than the Spirex because it is hit scan instead of being projectile based, which the Plinx, you know, is also, and the Spirex sadly isn't, but you trade it for multiplicative seal, which is really, really good. So, you know, pretty decent. All of the guns are really strong, and I would recommend trying all of the guns, the Spirex, the Vesper, and the Plinx. And I would definitely say that the Spirex with the Riven mode is one of the strongest single target pistols in the game. If not, I mean, before IQD and Plinx IQD, it was definitely the strongest, but now it's, you know, it's beaten by that, sadly. But, you know, still good. Now it's more of a room clearing pistol, and that's something I really like. Because it doesn't take much effort to actually room clear with this pistol, especially when you have a primer Kavat like I do. Because after the first attack, you see that the enemies simply disappear, which is extremely impressive. It is extremely impressive. The Vesper cannot do this, but the Vesper has the added benefit that you can, you know, play with your normal primary weapon, then you flip it, you shoot one guy, and the guy will die. That is what the Vesper is good at. So, that is going to be about it for this comparison. I think the Vesper mode is definitely worth keeping, and it will make your Vesper good enough to actually use it in missions and take advantage of it. And I think we could see some buff to its disposition to further increase its potential, but that will have to wait, as Riven disposition buffs only happen during the new Prime releases. So in around 3 months, we might see a buff to the Vesper again, and I might take a look at it again. Until then, we're done. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you on the next video.